Shabbat Shalom, friends.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Can anybody hear what's going on?
I can't hear anything. I was wondering about that myself.
Okay, as long as I don't think it's my machine.
I was worried my machine.
Okay.
They might be delayed because they have to do testing on some of the kids who are coming in and things like that. So I didn't really think they'd start on time tonight.
Will they test them at the temple?
If they don't, if they're not vaccinated and they can't, bring a proof of a negative test, because we have some young kids.
Oh. Life has sure gotten more complicated.
And unfortunately getting even more complicated again.
Yeah, sure.
Like we've seen this movie before. But I'm glad we got the setup so that we can do this and experience this in both ways.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that the Zoom works so good. It's a blessing.
Rabbi's in place. It's a good sign.
Yeah, there she is. It's like the rabbi's muted. I don't know if she's talking about the service or just carrying on a conversation.
Tov, how good it is to be together as brothers and sisters. If you have the fat book, it's page 128. And if you have the thin book, it's page 10. And those here can join us. Those at home can join us as long as you're all muted. So we begin the service with Hine Matov.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה טעים. לי 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 לי, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. לי 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 לי, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. לי 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 לי, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
So now I'd like to call up Eli's parents, Eric and Missy, as well as brothers and sisters, Olivia, Judah, Kiana, and of course, Eli, to light the candles. There's going to be a blessing from the parents, and the candle blessing is page 120 on the fat book and 2 in the thin one.
In the midst of this community, we gather together as our child is prepared to become a messenger of the sacred tradition of the Jewish people. On the eve of our child's entrance into Jewish maturity as a bar mitzvah, may he always treasure this precious inheritance.
May his heart always be filled with joy, his mind with wisdom and insight, his lips with kindness, and may he be a worthy sustainer of the teachings of Torah that have given meaning and inspiration to all humanity.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And Eli is going to lead us in the Kiddush, which is on page 123 in the fat book and 5 in the thin book.
Yom HaShishi, Vayhulu HaShamayim Be'aretz, Vayhol Tzavan, Vayhol Elohim, Vayom HaShvi, Melekto Asher Asha, Vayishbot Vayom HaShvi, Mikol Melekto Asher Asa, Vayavarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi, V'kadesh Oto, Ki bo Shabbat Mikol Melekto Asher Bara Elohim Lasot. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei kli hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. Shabbat kodsho v'ahava u'ratzon hiniranu, zikaron l'maaseh b'reishit. Ki hu yom tehila lemikra kodesh, zecher letziat Mizrayim. Ki ranu v'chayta, yirtanu kidashta, mikol ha'avim nimdim v'shabbat kodeshecha, v'ahava u'ratzon hinatanu b'yadin. Baruch atah Adonai, מקדש השבת. אמן.
L'chaim. And we're going to continue on page 126 and 8.
I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life.
So the mystics of our tradition would go out into nature on Friday night in white outfits and welcome the Sabbath bride. L'chadodi is the song that welcomes the Sabbath bride. It's on page 138 in the fat book and 20 in the thin one. For the very last paragraph, we're going to do 1, 2, 5, and 9. 1, 2, 5, and 9. For the last stanza, we stand up, we look towards the door to welcome the Sabbath bride.
לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומקורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. now at בואי ושלום. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
You may be seated. We're going to continue with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 263 And 145, we're not going to be skipping around as much now, so you can sort of follow the service without getting lost, I hope. The Hatzi Kaddish, which is sort of a punctuation in the service, so separates different sections of the service.
Yikadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'ama divra chirute, ve'amlich malchute, b'chayechonu yom echon, uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, v'yimeru, amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'alam u'lal me'amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar, v'yiromam, v'yinaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei lekudesha, b'echu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'yimeru, amen.
We continue with the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. And to open the ark, we call up cousins Taryn, Lily, and Blake, page 264 and 146, and we rise. You may be seated. And we continue with the Ma'ariv Aravim, which is a blessing about nature and creation. We affirm that God created the world. And that's on the next page.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, bechochma poteach she'arim, uvidvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, sader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, bore yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, bechoshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil bein yom uvein layla, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo. El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim.
The next blessing is a blessing of revelation, that out of love, ahava, God gave us Torah. Ahavat Olam, page 266 and 148.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Havta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu lemadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu u'vekumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach v'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Ki heim chayenu ve'orech yamenu ve'orech yamenu uvahem nege yomam v'layla ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
We rise to the Shema, the declaration that God is one.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated, and we continue with the Ve'ahavta, page 268 and 150. The Ve'ahavta is our command to love God just as God loves us. We love God back. And Eli's grandfather, Mark Zavar, can come up because he's going to read the English after Eli does the Hebrew.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day, and press them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God.
I'd like to invite up Kiana and Eric, who are going to join in the Michamocha, the Song of the Sea, which we sang when we escaped from slavery in Egypt and crossed on dry land. Song of liberation.
Moshe
a happy song. We're liberated from slavery. It's great. Okay, page 272 and 154 for a blessing about Shabbat.
The people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
The tefillah is the central prayer of the service. It includes blessings about our ancestors, about God's power, and about God's holiness. So we rise, page 273 in the fat book and 155, I believe, in the thin one.
Adonai sefatai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagin tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagin tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Yom Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konecha Kol v'Zochter Haseh Avot v'Imahot Umevi Geolah Livnei V'neihem Laman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Hozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechaye Hakol Atah Rav Lehoshia Moshiv Haruach Umorid Hagashem Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechaye Hakol Berachamim Ravim Somech Noflim Verofei Holim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afa Michamocha Baal Gevurot Umidom Elach מלך ממית ומחיים ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללו הסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated, and the next prayer is Ritzeh, which is a prayer asking God to accept our worship, page 279.
Ratzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahavat kabel u'tehil ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael Yisrael amecha el karov lechol koreh pnei lavadecha v'choneinu shafach ruchacha aleinu ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון. ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון.
The Hoda'ah is a blessing of thanks for everything that God has given us. It's on page 280 in the thick book and 162 in the thin book.
Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu le'olam va'ed. Tzor chayenu magen yishenu atahu ledor vador. Nodeh lecha unsaper tehilatecha al chayenu hamsurim beyadecha ve'al nishmotenu hapkudot lach ve'al simcha shebcho yom imanu ve'al nifleotecha Techa v'tovotecha shebachol eit erev v'avoker v'tzochoraim. Hatov ki lo chalu rachamecha v'hamrachem ki lo tamu chasadecha ve'olam kivinu lach. Ve'al kulam yitbarach v'yitromam shimcha malkenu tamid le'olam va'ed. V'chol hachayim yoducha selah. V'hallelu et shimcha be'emet. Ha'el Yeshuatenu ve'ezratenu selah. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'el lehodot.
And we conclude the tefillah with a blessing for peace, Shalom Rav, which is page 282 and 164.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasir Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
We take a moment now to think of those in need of healing, whether of body, of mind, or of spirit. When we think of congregants and friends and family of congregants, Jonathan Davidson, Ben Henderson, Kara Gilman, Rabbi Steve Robbins, Gloria Mangus, Steve Lux, Leslie Ferris, Pamela Mangus, Johnny Sikat, Sid Love, Larry Miller, Jeff Simons, Kelly Work, Marilyn Whitmer, Abby Sandaha, Deanna Cohen, Barbara Droutman, Reverend Dr. Tom Bohatch, Mark McGuire, Martha Miller, Judy Richmond, Larry Wittek, Fernando Guerrero, Mark Edwards. If you'd like to add a name, please do so as I look around the room. Let's look at what we have. Oh, I'm sorry, Diana Anderson. Ruth and Sandra Landis, Jess Landis, Ron Jones, Ron Brazil, Aaron Havner, Irma Kemp, Judy Cohen, Renee Yablonsky, Sheila Winston, Jackson Griffin, Joan Bertoli, Lauren Woodruff, Art Ochoa, Lucy Hogel, Chris Hanlon, Frank Kerhan, Lita Warshay, Jeff Hicks, Babette Cooper, and the prayer for healing, the Misha Berach. We don't have the words for you, but you can listen and heal. we're so fortunate to have such a beautiful musical family accompanied by a wonderful soloist named Elliot. Thank you for that beautiful, beautiful music. So the Torah is rife with repetitions and ironies. This week's Torah portion, Vayechi, which means "and he lived," begins with the end of Jacob's life and concludes with the death of Joseph. Similarly to the Torah portion of Chaye Sarah, which means the life of Sarah, which begins with her death and ends with Abraham's. Now, what might this suggest? I think perhaps it suggests that our lives are ultimately crowned by the legacy that we leave behind, whether it's our children or our art or our teaching or some other way that we've made a lasting impact in the world, and of course on the people around us. In the case of Jacob, he's outlived by his 12 sons and his 2 grandsons by Joseph, among other children and grandchildren. Much of this parsha, this Torah portion, comprises all the blessings that Jacob bestows on his kids. At the same time, I think that the odd title of these Torah portions suggests that our own lives are deeply impacted by those who shaped us, our parents, of course, and those who came before. The influence of our parents and our ancestors can be quite beneficial, of course. It can also sometimes be toxic. Favoritism is a recurring and important theme throughout Genesis. God favors Abel's sacrifice over Cain's, which leads to Cain murdering Abel. Abraham favors Isaac over Ishmael, leading Abraham to abandon Ishmael in the desert. Rebekah favors Jacob over Esau, helping him to trick his father into giving him Esau's blessing. And Jacob favors Joseph, which results in his being sold into slavery. In all these cases, the younger brother is blessed over the older one. Which brings us to a striking other repetition, the way that Jacob blesses his children, actually his grandchildren. When Jacob's father Isaac was dying, his eyesight was dim. He blessed Jacob thinking that he was the older brother Esau. Now Jacob is dying, and his eyesight is dim. When he blesses Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, he crosses his hands in order to give the blessing of the firstborn to the younger one. This favoring of the younger son throughout the Torah perhaps is meant to suggest that leadership is not to be given based on seniority, but on the individual character of the person. It's also a divinely sanctioned choice. God is behind all of these preferences, which is kind of disturbing when you think about the sibling rivalry that ensues from this. After all, as I said, Cain kills Abel, Abraham abandons Ishmael, Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery. But fortunately, as the story of Genesis unfolds, there is learning and growth on the part of our biblical family, and maybe even on God's part as well. At least Joseph's brothers don't kill him. They almost do, but choose to sell him to the Ishmaelites instead. The brothers reconcile in the end, as do Jacob and Esau, though they all go their separate ways. Perhaps most hopeful is the blessing that Jacob gives to his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, because even with his crossed hands, Jacob is blessing them at the same time. Though he predicts that the younger will be greater than the older, he predicts greatness for both. And Jacob states that all Israel will be blessed by these 2. May you be like Ephraim and Manasseh, without identifying one as superior to the other. So why is it that we bless our sons on Shabbat with this exact blessing? May you be like Ephraim and Manasseh. Rabbi Laura Geller suggests that it's because these 2 brothers were the very first siblings in the Torah who do not fight. As she writes, an unusual thing, right? Any brothers here who don't fight? Yeah, or even sisters. With Ephraim and Manasseh, the family pathology that unfolds in the book of Genesis, in which siblings struggle with each other finally comes to an end. That's until we get to the next book, but hey, Genesis ends well. They teach us that we do not have to fight over blessings. There are enough of them to go around. This is a fitting ending to the book of Genesis, which concludes with this Torah portion. And by the way, what we say when we end a book of Torah is Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. May we be strengthened by this. Now that I gave you a wonderfully positive conclusion, I need to add a little note that is not so positive. Because after blessing his grandsons, then Jacob blesses his 12 sons. However, we know that Jacob has at least one daughter, Dinah. Why no blessing for her? As hopeful as the ending of our book of Torah might be, leaving out this one daughter clearly indicates that there is more learning to be done by our ancestors. And by the way, when the two sisters vie for favoritism on the part of Jacob, Leah and Rachel, they managed to negotiate with each other rather than to fight and kill or send somebody off to slavery. So that's something we might learn from women as well. So again, thank you for the absolutely beautiful music tonight, Elliot, Eric, Missy, Kiana. And thank you, Lori Magnus is our board member sitting on the bima to represent the board. We appreciate her work. She represents the sisterhood for the board. I want to thank our wonderful tech people back there, Jory and Nick. Maybe you could switch the camera around so we can see you. They're back there somewhere. There we go. Zoom in. There they are. Thank you. Not only did they do the tech tonight, but they're the ones who install the system that allows us to have this multi-way of worshiping together. So the next couple of weeks, we are not going to have services that are hybrid because one is Christmas Eve and one is New Year's Eve, and not that we celebrate those things as Jews, but it's going to be, we assume, a more sparsely attended service. So the next two services will be online only. Just letting you know, I will be off for a couple of weeks, so Randy Lester Wilson is going to lead the services, and I'm sure they'll be wonderful. Hi, Randy, wherever you are. Are there any announcements? Carol Lee, do you have an announcement? If you do, I have to bring you a mic because I can't hear you on Zoom without the mic. She's thinking maybe this is a good occasion to get a microphone. I have to turn it on.
Just about. Thanks. We are still giving money to charity. We found out that we had more charities and we had more money. So the junior youth group has given more money to Arlington Temporary and
Taking it to the streets?
Take it to the streets we sort of did before.
Okay.
But one more, Cara Crohn's, and I've...
Family Promise?
Family Promise, that's it, thank you. So that's what I wanted to announce.
And also several individuals.
And several individuals and more individuals. So thank you all, all of you, for contributing, because we really, really did very well this year in giving hope to some people and organizations. So thank you, everybody.
And we want to thank Carol Lee, not only for all you do to organize the youth group and to do this wonderful mitzvah around the holidays, but of course, training all our wonderful B'nai Mitzvah, a shining example being this young man this evening. So thank you for everything you do.
Oh, it's such a pleasure.
I just wanted to thank everyone who is helping with the oneg. I don't know if they're all here, but we really appreciate it.
Great. Anybody else have an announcement? I would like to also thank Eileen Stein, who's on Zoom, because she's not here in person, and maybe people forgot all the work that she does, which is she still takes stuff to Arlington Temporary and to taking it to the streets with Lori and Shira, and is always very, very conscious of people in need in our community. Also, if people bring cans of food or whatever, I mean, we should still be doing all this, even though we don't come in person as much as we used to, but there are a lot of people in need in our community, and it's getting cold, it's very cold, as we know, so please always think about people out there, and Eileen is always willing to bring whatever to the right places, so thank you, Eileen. There is going to be an oneg tonight outside, a little brisk. You can do some jumping jacks when you get out there. And then, of course, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., this gentleman will become bar mitzvah, which, yeah. And we hope all of you will be able to attend. So to open the ark for the Aleinu, we're going to call up cousins.
We have a Kol Haolam.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I had it written down. Okay, this was supposed to come right after my little sermonette. Kol ha'olam kulo. Thank you for reminding me. All the world is a narrow bridge, and the most important thing is not to be afraid. The Aleinu, if you probably have a little Xerox inside the cover of your prayer book, which has all the paragraphs together rather than having to flip around from page to page. If you don't have it, in the fat book, it's page 586, and in the thin book, it's page 282. But hopefully you have the Xerox copy. It makes it a lot easier. To open the ark, we call up cousins Caleb, Jason, and Danny, and we rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה לארצי בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשבות אליו אביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
May be seated. At this time of joy, we think of those who are no longer with us. May their memories be for a blessing. And we call to mind Eli's great-grandparents, Albert and Thelma Sabar, Sylvia and Sam Barron, Mary and John McDevitt, Irene and Phil Newhouse. Is anyone here observing Shiva, Shloshim, or the first year of mourning and would like to mention a name? First year, Elaine Burke, Solomon Fishman, Albert Archibald Jr., Elena Archibald Farris, Stan Walkman, and Joanne Heslin, first year, Heshi Glick, first year. First year, Alan Pasternak. And we're also observing yard sites this Shabbat for Dora Rogalski, Betty Sikoff, Evelyn Fenster, Ben Samsky, Vilya Turner-Sherman, Earl Hagan Pearlstein, Eliud Martinez, Jerry Cruz, Claire Cannell, Louis Geller, Paul Gehring, Sidney Maxman, Christine Miller, Max Fields, Jacob Weiss, Pia Zarate, Julie Cannell, Miriam Leffler, Reed Aaron Gilbert, Priscilla Cohen, Maury Sherman, Karen Badowski Muller, Sam Elevitz, Marilyn Weinberg, Betsy Land, Myron Bernard Goldberg, Myron Bernard Goldwell, June. I don't know what happened to my mic. Oh, there it is. Fanny Goldware, Sarah Taylor Goldware, Joe Stone, Rosalind Altman, Pearl Bosis, Rabbi Bernard Ziegler, Patty Francis, Morris Hosh. Anybody, Myrna Pavelak, first year. First year, Reverend Evans, Willie Davis, Maggie Johnson. Are there any yard sites? Anybody here have a yard site that we didn't mention? Or on Zoom? The Mourner's Cottage is on page 598 and on page 294. Those on Zoom, if you would like to unmute, you may do so and join us in the Mourner's Cottage. And we all rise as we also think of those who perished in the Holocaust and have no one to say the Mourner's Cottage for them. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah. Be'alma divrach yehutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chayei lechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam l'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say, Amen. Our closing song is Adon Olam, which is on page 625 in the Fat Book and 321 in the thinner book.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, Beterem Kol, Yetzir Nivra, Leit Nasa, Vechetz HaKol, Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, Ve'hu Haya, Ve'hu Hove, Ve'hu Yeh Betifara Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, Beterem Kol, Yetzir Nivra, Leit Nasa, Vechefzo Kol, Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'hu Echad Ve'en Sheni, Lehamshilo Lehachpir Adon Olam, Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit, Ve'lo Haoz Ve'hamisra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, Beterem Kol, Yetzir Nivra, Leit Nasa, Vechefzo Kol, Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'hu Eli V'chai Goli, Ve'tzor Chevli Leit Nasa Adon Olam, Ve'hu Nisi Umanos Li, Menat Kosi Beyom Mikra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, Beterem Kol, Yetzir Nivra, Vechefzo Kol, Vechefzo Kol, Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Beyado Afkid Ruchi, Beit Ishan Ve'arira Adon Olam, Ve'im Ruchi Geviyati, Adon Aliyah Ve'orira Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, Beterem Kol, Yetzir Nivra, Leit Nasa, Vechefzo Kol, Azay Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam.
So I'd like to call up all the children. Come up for the motzi, please. Oh, did you make this? It's beautiful. Whoa, look at this gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, all kids come over and just touch. No big hands, just touching. One finger, yeah, one finger.
I'm a little kid.
Let everybody come over and get near here. Come on.
Touch the guy behind you if you can't reach the challah.
Here we go. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. Please join us for the oneg.
Go ahead. Go ahead, you guys.
Good.
Yeah, you know, you're a little kind of. Get some while it's still there. Here, you take that back outside. No?
Yeah, people may want.
Outside.
Hi, Joan.
Hi. Hi.
Yes, we can unmute, yeah. So that was lovely.
Well, I didn't quite get what you said.
I said that was a lovely service.
Oh, it was. Absolutely. It was great.
What a musical family. I just can't get over it.
It's
Just about
fantastic. Yeah.
Unbelievable, each of them.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, I'm going out now. Are you feeling well?
So far, so good. How about you, Elise?
Fine, doing okay.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Yes, hope to see you soon. Okay, then I'm gonna leave now.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye all.